Tim, it's been quite an eventful couple of days in the build up to the tournament. So I think I'm just going to let you wind up and unleash what's going on. You've finally got to Abu Dhabi after that whirlwind trip with the Dubai floods and a bit of a buzz around social media as well with the GoFundMe that was set up.
Well, where to start, Bez? It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks, really. We're finally sitting here in Abu Dhabi and about to head out to our first practice match against Uganda, which itself has been reorganised and changed time and ground because of the weather here. You wouldn't have known that it had flooded here in the last week and caused havoc with all the planes coming in and out, but all looking well now. But yeah, it's an interesting thing when you sort of look back and think how things started that sort of get to be somewhat of a snowball. That it was Hermione and Jamal Vera, Hermione's marketing officer and events manager when we're hosting events, and Jamal, her older brother, who's operations manager and national team player and jack of all trades. I think it's an idea between both of them to try and lesser the impact or financial impact on the players, because as has always been, basically all the gear used by most of the players in Vanuatu has either been donated, and whether that's by players they've played against, for those that have played overseas, or perhaps they've had bats bought for them by the clubs. Hannah Darlington left one of her bats behind at the recent Indigenous tour back in May 23. It's being used by the team, or as we've talked about in the past, a great work of Peter Duffy down in Melbourne. He makes and repairs bats, and when people bring in broken bats, he gives them the option of donating it to the cause, and he repairs it back to as close to new as possible. And he's just sent another 12 over that'll be used by our national teams, or indeed the VCA has bought the gear ourselves. So we've tried to change that up this year and bring a little bit more ownership to the gear for the players, meaning that they'll have their own equipment that's suited to them and theirs, but also hopefully that equipment will last a bit longer because it will be owned and cared for by only one person and not be just part of a more or less a club kit for those of us that have been lucky enough to grow up in places that had club kits. So what we have done, what we did for the men back in Malaysia, and as we were doing for the women for this tour, is that we pay the players a tour bonus or a tour fee, which is more or less a salary, and that's over and above everything else that's already provided for in this tour. The ICC pays for flights, accommodation, etc. We pay for all their apparel, for food outside of match day meals and the breakfast provided by the hotels, and also travel insurance as well, which is not insignificant. Travel insurance itself is about $5,000 for a team traveling from Vanuatu anywhere in the world for a cricket tour itself. So what this arrangement was supposed to do was take what would be a $500 Australian dollar kit that I think in the shops would be somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 easily, but thanks to Ferox Cricket in Melbourne, they've been able to supply gear to us at better than wholesale rates, which means that each player would only be paying $500. So that GoFundMe, and also a local sort of call for donations, so people didn't have to use GoFundMe necessarily, could drop the money in, was to cover that, meaning that the amount of money that the players themselves would have paid for the gear out of their tour bonus would be covered. And on the back of great support locally from lots of different people, it wasn't necessarily one or two entities that put a huge amount in, which is really encouraging. And also the GoFundMe, which I think has dozens of donations, everything from $5 to $1,000. The CEO of iComply, Rod Prestia, donated another 1,000 to the many thousands he's already donated to the VCA through the iComply partnership. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see all the positivity generated about our women being in this tournament. I guess on the flip side, it was a little bit jarring that I think a lot of people took that as an opportunity to take it as an ICC bash time. And as we all well know of our opinions on how we think that cricket can be better run and grown and developed internationally. And despite us just coming out of more or less the Hunger Games in Malaysia, we are still due to receive almost $500,000 US. We're sort of like the top third of nations in terms of funding, or members, as we say, because in all ICC members and nations themselves. But so it's just that money has to go a long way. We have 20 plus staff. We don't have as many professional players now, with the 4 offices, 4 and soon to be 5 grounds, and everything that comes with that really does add up. So it's just a matter of us being able to make every US dollar that we get from the ICC stretch, and us trying to find more and more partners, be they so governmental, from the likes of Team Up through the Australian government or beyond. So yeah, I think I put that tweet out. I think I wrote it in the airport. I was in Sydney, heading back to Brisbane, and about to fly to Abu Dhabi, and I thought, I'm just uneasy. When there are things to talk about that we could do better from a global cricket point of view when it comes to the size of global events, a more egalitarian approach to funding, trying to fund the little guys a bit better, and trying to bring them up quicker, as opposed to having things in place where the rich seem to get richer and the poor, I won't say get the picture, because then we'll be singing a bit of Midnight Oil. But I think that the result of this, and why we're asking for this money, and if we'd have qualified for the Challenge League, there would have been a lot of money in the pot, and maybe we would have been looking at this differently. But in some ways, maybe not. And the fact that we're trying to really bring a sense of ownership to all of our players with their gear and their kit, it's just something that's never been there in the game in Vanuatu, and it's just something that maybe so many of us that have grown up playing in the West, and places where kids have been lucky enough to have a kit of their own from when they were 6 years old, just trying to help the players actually get a better sense of, and I'm sort of quoting Chris Laffin, sort of high performance manager, of players really investing in themselves, and that goes to everything from nutrition, welfare, and general fitness, but it's also the equipment that you have, and we know how important, well, especially bats, but other equipment is. But from a bat point of view, the difference between a good bat and a bad bat, and a catch being taken inside the boundary, or going for 6, or making it over a fielder, or going for 4 rather than being pulling out for 2, is one of the sort of real easy things that can be controlled, really, in the sense of the equipment that you have. So we're just hoping this is going to be a bit of a new dawn for the type of culture that we're trying to develop within Vanuatu, and that comes from the bottom up with our new sort of school programs and VCA Academy. So yeah, I hope that sort of answers that. I think it's great that the world's taking notice that Vanuatu is here, and I hope that the focus pretty soon moves away from the fact that this team had to beg for money, or how other people are putting it, and that it's not sort of Cricket Australia's fault, the ICC's fault that Vanuatu is, but the fact that this team has come to a global tournament, the lowest ranked by quite a way, and really puts the fear of God up some of the teams out there, because you and I know that the talent's definitely there. It's just a matter of putting it together. I think that our biggest challenge will be the depth of our squad, and sort of greater pool of players, as opposed to the other teams that are here. I think is probably the biggest factor. I think our best players are up there with some of the best players that are here. It's just going to be the depth within the team. So I think it's going to be a real team effort for us to be successful here. But by no means am I not fully aware of the challenge that this is going to be. Sri Lanka, who we're playing in our second trial game, are ranked 7th in the world, and just came back from South Africa after winning games down there. But I'm just excited for the whole team and everyone connected to them, because this is really the biggest sporting event that any Vanuatu team has ever qualified for. They haven't got there because of their hosting, or because of a golden pass or anything like that. We've got through a tough regional qualification beating the 11th ranked team in the world. We talk about Sri Lanka being 7. PNG were 11, so maybe we shouldn't be that bothered. Beating them well, and also having a bit of a wobble against the team ranked 20th, and then getting through there as well. So I think there's a lot to be excited about what this team